Demon Slayer Season 2 Episode 9 is here, and boy oh boy does it pack a punch. From Tanjiro using a new breath style combination for the very first time, to Zenitsu being a sort of general on the front lines here, to every one of our heroes getting absolutely destroyed. So this episode first opens up with Shinobi Tengen and his 3 wives visiting his family grave. Now this is a depiction that was not present in the manga, however it is a depiction that I was definitely longing for and hoping would be the case with this anime iteration, as this Studio Ufotable does go above and beyond, as we say with every single episode, every single video, and it is to the extent that we are so blessed, we are so privileged that I can be presumptuous enough to expect them to provide further depth and intrigue to these characters. Truthfully, although there is great importance in the retrieval of Tengen's 3 wives, that sort of situation kind of devolves over the course of this entire arc when it comes to the manga. We don't really know these characters all that well. They may be a little bit helpful at certain junctions, but beyond that, they're not really much. But here we get depth, we get to know them a bit better. It's not going to be substantial, it's not going to be like the biggest thing ever because they don't want to just, make up or fabricate a bunch of new content that was never in the manga. They don't want to make up a whole new story on top of Gotoge's already incredible work. But really and truly, it's just little things like these that allow for characterization, that allow for us to know these guys better and actually care about them. Without this sort of scene, we wouldn't even know how much Tengen cared about his siblings. I mean, we of course knew that he was unhappy with his situation and them all dying was a part of that, but we didn't know that he cared about them to the extent that he would visit their grave and promise to drink with them in the afterlife. There's also a self-deprecating and regretful bit there, as he says that he will be going to hell. And I am certain that that is a deep pain that this character harbors. I mean, the Demon Slayer Corps, they are the unsung heroes of humanity. Master Ubuyashiki gave Tengen's life purpose because before he wasn't even hunting demons, he was hunting other people. He was killing off people. And those are sins that none of the other Hashira, let alone the vast majority of the Demon Slayers, possess at all. And I'm sure that's why he compares himself to Rengoku, believing that he is a lesser here. Rengoku being a sort of chivalrous hero who didn't allow anyone to die on his watch, who was born into this Demon Slayer business for the most part. Tengen was born with the expectation of becoming a shinobi. Kyojuro was born with the expectation of becoming a Demon Slayer. Even when his father rejected him becoming a Demon Slayer, Kyojuro still went ahead and did it, becoming a Hashira. Tengen, on the other hand, despite defying his father, wavered along his path, and that is something that, again, Master Ubuyashiki had to convince him was a good thing despite being a hard thing. Kyojuro was made to bear the responsibility of raising his young brother and being a proper example for him. Tengen lost all of his siblings except for one, his younger brother, who he essentially failed, who ended up being a replica of his father, someone he could not connect with at all. Yet there is still the responsibility of setting a proper example for those who are no longer of this world. Tengen's flashiness, it is more than just a rejection of his silent shinobi ways. It is him putting on a show for his siblings beyond the grave, and I think that is incredible. These characters are so rich, and truly, again, it is just these little bits of characterization that can just expand our understanding of these characters so tremendously, and I love it. I've also come to notice that at least with the scenes we've seen them in thus far, Tengen seems to be especially delicate with Hinatsuru. And furthermore, Hinatsuru seems to sort of be like the leader of the pack here. What is essentially his right hand in this polygamous relationship, despite them all fighting for it. But anyways, getting back to his ongoing conflict against Upper Moon 6, Gyutaro, this guy was able to regenerate even despite having the poison in his system, as he was able to neutralize it, which does make sense considering he is largely a poison-based demon, and this was a single kunai, mind you, amongst the many that were shot. And from there, despite being stationary, Gyutaro would use his blood demon art, and here Tengen would have to kick Tanjiro out of the fray yet again. And so despite now being a bit more in sync, Tanjiro is still a burden in this fight. He is still holding Tengen back. And I am sure that that is a horrible feeling for Tanjiro, especially considering his trauma losing Rengoku. But at the very least, he is doing a lot more than he did back then. And I would like you guys to recognize that Rengoku continues to come up in our discussions of this content, and that is not without reason. To follow up the Mugen Train arc, we have this arc, the Entertainment District arc, and what Gotoge decided to do with Tengen's character and this arc in general after that one is nothing short of brilliant in terms of elevating our characters and taking taking us to that next level while also recounting our past. Now when Gyutaro gets a hold of Hinatsuru, it is definitely a scary thing, which brings a particular memory to mind for Tengen, which was him and his 3 wives deciding that after this job, after this mission, they would be calling it quits. He would be retiring from the Demon Slayers. And truly the prerequisite for it, him defeating an Upper Moon demon, is a steep one. You have to remember that an Upper Moon demon has not been defeated in over 100 years. That is a crazy feat for them to expect him to be able to do. But one that they were not irrational about at all, as they did not expect to emerge unscathed. But regardless, this was the final job, which is a bit melancholy as a fan, because either way, whether they win, whether they lose, this is it for Tengen as a Hashira. But now Tanjiro, in his refusal of being a burden in this conflict, in his refusal of seeing yet another person die before his eyes, leaps to the aid of Hinatsuru. Not with the Hinokami Kagura, because he does not have the stamina, he does not have the capability of being able to use that continuously, as he is pretty much burnt out on that. However, he was able to use it to some extent in conjunction with his water breathing. This is the very first time he does this, but this is all too important. This sets a precedent, because this is him accepting a deviance. This is him rerouting into a different direction, going along a different path of progression, as opposed to mastering water breathing as Gyu Tomioka has. And that is a big deal. That pretty much solidifies that Tanjiro will never be the water Hashira. Now mind you, that doesn't mean he can never be a Hashira, but water is now off the table because he is not mastering it. He is not treating it as his signature style. Now at that, plenty of other characters do end up using derivative styles because that is simply what fits them best. And Inosuke is a character that uses a derivative style. If you didn't know, beast breathing is a derivative of wind. And so when it comes to these things, it is like min-maxing in a video game. Tanjiro's pinnacle is now said to be some combination of sun breathing and water breathing. By using sun breathing, he can never reach the apex of water breathing, and by using water breathing, he is far less likely to ever reach the pinnacle of sun breathing that we now know to be oh so legendary as the very first breathing style in existence. Now Inosuke and Zenitsu were having a tough time getting in close proximity with Daki, as she was now a lot more powerful than she ever has been previously. Yet as Inosuke flailed about and was just getting really frustrated here, Zenitsu turned out to be quite the commander, telling him to calm down. And at this time, Zenitsu is very much asleep, but at this point, it kind of just feels like a front. He's talking as he's asleep now. I mean, even more than being asleep, this seems like he has a whole different personality. And I'll be the first to say that I love him when he's like this. This is Zenitsu at his coolest. And this is the Zenitsu that I absolutely adore. The other one does get on my nerves from time to time, but this guy, oh my goodness, he is just cool. And it's funny, the hairstyle he has going on, the makeup, he hasn't changed it at all since he was in disguise, but he makes it look really cool right now. And it's to the point where even Inosuke had to agree. Now, in knowing himself not to be of much use to Tengen here, and also wanting to alleviate the strain on Inosuke and Zenitsu against Daki, Tanjiro decided to join them. However, as this is going on, Gyutaro's sickles, his blood demon art, would still assail Tanjiro as he is going against Daki. And that is yet another very important tidbit. Gyutaro is very strong. He is very strong, and comparatively, his sister really is not. She's kind of like a tag-along, an Upper Moon 6 by association, where in reality, she's more like a Lower Moon 1. She may have killed over half a dozen Hashira at this point, but it's pretty safe to assume that those were low-grade Hashira at best. Now, if you're not familiar, the prerequisite of becoming a Hashira is pretty straightforward. You have to be Kino A rank, which is the top rank for Demon Slayers outside of the pillars, at which point you can become one either the easy way or the hard way. The hard way being by killing a member of the 12 Kizuki, which despite not being how he became a Hashira, was actually pretty damn easy for Gyu against Rui. And although I called this the hard part, it's really not that hard when you consider that Kyogai, the drum demon, who was one of the first demons that Tanjiro defeated, mind you, was formerly of the 12 Kizuki. The literal bottom of the barrel, lower rank 6, but still a member regardless. But if not that, there is again the easy way, which is just killing 50 demons. And this is cumulative. This is over the course of your career as a Slayer, which really should not be that difficult if you are Kinoe rank to begin with anyways. And so yeah, I'm sure that back in the day when they were most desperate or whatever, it was probably easy to become a Hashira, and they probably got clapped by Daki. But anyways, back to the main point, Gyutaro here is doing the most. He is trying to help out his sister who may be struggling, who he wants to protect. and that is a weakness. That is a fatal flaw. Gyutaro is very strong. If he really wanted to, if he was fighting by his lonesome, his solo dolo, he could be a menace to these guys, but here he is distracted. Here he's worrying about his sister. Here he has to be viewing from her perspective to even the playing field. That is a lot of extra work. He is carrying in this fight and it is holding him back. But now with 3 adversaries, Daki could not keep up. She was slowing down. She was not able to assail them in the very same manner that she had previously. And that allowed Inosuke to capitalize. That allowed all of them to capitalize really, as this was a combination effort and it looked dazzling. It looked so cool. And I have to say that again, Studio Ufotable absolutely loves Zenitsu. He looked the coolest here among them all. And the way that Inosuke just hacked off Daki's head was disrespectful but so deserved. And at that, just to be safe, I'd like to point out that although Inosuke was able to take off Daki's head with her being at her absolute strongest, this feat of his is not necessarily above that of Tanjiro's when he was using Hinokami Kagura against her. The only reason Inosuke is succeeding where Tanjiro failed is because he has 2 swords. Applying equal pressure on both sides, it is just like cutting a ribbon. And once her head is severed, Inosuke grabs it and does the dash. However, it does not take very long for Gyutaro to intervene and pierce Inosuke through the chest with his poisonous sickle. And at the side of this, Tanjiro had to wonder where the hell is Tengen, as we would then see it, Tengen grounded, bloodied, and with a severed arm. Things have turned from bad to worse, and it doesn't stop there, as Zenitsu would immediately rush to Tanjiro's aid and tell him to watch out as he was distracted by this sight of Tengen. Zenitsu manages to save Tanjiro's life here, but for everyone else, including himself, things are not so clear. But with that stabbing on the part of Gyutaro, again, I have to bring up the point that he is picking up the slack for his sister. He is shouldering the burden. Yes, we see Tengen on the ground here. Yes, we see him with a severed hand. However, Gyutaro did not slice him up to ribbons. He did not stomp him out. He did not make a bloody mess. Instead, he went to aid his sister. If he didn't have to do that, this would be over and done with. And perhaps some of you may be thinking that by tag teaming with his sister Daki, Gyutaro is in a better position than he would be by his lonesome, especially considering there are so many demon slayers in this situation, but I have to disagree, because Tengen by his lonesome, despite being able to hold his own to some extent against Gyutaro, is no match. If it were just these two against one another, Tengen would be dead. And when it comes to our younger slayers, they are in an even more precarious predicament against him. They cannot even touch him without him being distracted by something else of more significance. He could easily one-shot them all, which would make them a burden to have alongside Tengen, despite Tengen again not being able to handle Gyutaro himself, so it would just be a slaughter. Daki is the real hindrance here, and to be fair, it isn't as if he needs to protect her. She is a demon. The worst they can do to her is cut her head off, and if Gyutaro is still around and kicking, she isn't going to really perish. But his brotherly instinct, his desire to protect his sister, same as how Tanjiro is with Nezuko, despite her not being destroyed by these demons, despite her not being able to be killed by these demons, there is still that drive to not see your little sister in pain. This episode was damn good, and really and truly, I do not want the fun to stop at all. The next episode is set to be the second to last for this season, and man, I am kind of sad about it. But it's alright, either way, we will continue to be bringing you guys plenty of Demon Slayer content as we have been. You guys seem to really enjoy this stuff, and we really enjoy making it for you, so thank you for all the support. And speaking of support, we could really use it on our Plot Armor Comics channel, where we aim to bring you guys plenty of Western comic content, similarly to how we do when it comes to anime and manga. So if that is the sort of thing that you may be interested in, please go ahead and check us out. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Plot Armor with notifications on, because when it comes to bringing you some of the best Demon Slayer content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching, and have an awesome day. I love you.